Welcome, welcome. Welcome to Uncensored Enlightenment Talk. Hey, you're here with your host, Grace Levi. Yes, we have a special broadcast today. Coming in a little bit early, taking over daytime TV. I hope you guys are having, YouTube and Rumble. You know how it is. All right. Hope you guys are having an amazing Sunday. I've been dropping some things, so this is going to be a shout out to Rumble and Big Chew. I dropped some stuff. I've been noticing Rumble, I get more hits when I go live. So maybe that platform fix myself, like when I go live, but I do drop regular content. So please turn your notifications on. Okay. I dropped something on the Black Discovery section today. Please don't mind the factory noise in the back. We got some things going on, but it's okay. We're going to work through it. It's an amazing day. So today we're actually going to do a review of the AJ Armstrong Jr. retrial. And if you haven't heard about that, we want to talk about it today because I think it's very important for especially the Black community and all communities who may have a situation like this where a young man is actually pursued not once, not twice, but three times by the DA regarding killing his own parents, allegedly. So this happened when Mr. AJ was about 16 years old. I'm gonna fill in some of the narrative of what I have listened to, what I have heard of. Just remember when I say, allegedly is just because there is no videos that I have found right now, actual facts behind some of the things that I'm going to add on, so you can get a good idea of why they had to try him three times. Also highlighting the fact that if the DA or the prosecutors want to prosecute you, they're going to keep on doing it. Obviously, after the first two mistrials, it wasn't enough. So we're going to go through the beginning of it. We're going to listen to an interview of AJ. A few things. We're going to be here for a while, so we can break this down to what is going on and how did we get here today where this young man has been sentenced to life in prison. Okay. Now, this was an article August 16th. Just we're going to give a flash of what's going on now, and then we're going to kind of flash back. This is very troublesome. This is a troubling situation for me, and parents, because you never know, as far as this type of things happening, and if he is not involved, it's so sad that he has to go through all of this since the age of 16. So AJ Armstrong found guilty in the 2016 murder of his parents, and he is sentenced to life in prison. The verdict came after 11 days of witness testimony. The high-profile case has dragged on for years after two previous jurors could not reach a consensus on the verdict in 2019 and 2022. Okay. And they came back and did it again. All right. So AJ was found guilty of these murders. After 7 years and two mistrials, Houston resident Antonio AJ Armstrong Jr. was convicted of murdering his parents while they slept in their Bel Air area townhome. A Harris County jury issued a guilty verdict Wednesday, following 11 days of witness testimony and arguments by Armstrong Jr. defense team and prosecutors for the Harris County District Attorney Office. The high-profile case has dragged on for years as two previous jurors could not reach a consensus on the verdict in 2019 and 2020. The 23-year-old, he's 23 now at this time. Armstrong Jr. was 16 at the time of his parents' demise. Miss Dawn and Antonio Armstrong Sr. were shot to death during the early hours of July 29th, 2016. The youngster Armstrong faces a sentence of life in prison after being convicted of shooting them in the while his father with his father's 22 caliber pistol. He will have the possibility of parole in 40 years. The third capital murder trial in the case was delayed for nearly 2 months after previous discovered DNA. Now, this is something that we're going to touch on a little bit because I'm going to find more video evidence of some of these things that I'm going to add on. But this was a difference between the first two trials that got mistrials, and now mysteriously all these years they discovered DNA evidence. Now, we do have some video of his actual grandfather who's going to talk about it in the interview. and how he feels about this, because there are basically Mr. Armstrong Jr. family is supporting him. His grandfather, his grandmother, his family is supporting him under the guise that they believe that he could not have committed these murders. Okay, so we're going to get to that today. All right. So allegedly, specks of blood were found under the adhesive name tag placed on Armstrong Jr.'s clothing when he was brought to the police department for questioning. Now it said specks of blood were found. This is allegedly. Specks of blood were found under the adhesive name tag placed on Armstrong's Jr. clothing when he was brought to the police department for questioning in the aftermath of the murder. And subsequent testing confirmed DNA matching that of Armstrong Sr. Now that is so, like, we just, how can I say, weird, okay, for them to test a name tag. So allegedly it was the tag that they put on the clothes that he was wearing that found it. But my question is, did they find it on the clothes anywhere? Now that's where I will have some doubt about the validity of, this is my opinion, of that particular evidence, because if it can't match on the clothes particularly, and you're saying that it's found on adhesive tape to a name tag, that says a lot to me. So we're just gonna keep that in mind. We're just gonna keep that in mind. All right. New evidence could have made a difference for prosecutors, who also refuted the theory floating by the defense team that Armstrong, older half brother, could have committed the murders because he lived nearby at the time and had mental health issues. So, this is AJ Armstrong files federal. This is just another article. AJ Armstrong files federal lawsuit against the city of Houston and juries deliberating his fate in the third Capitol murder. That's going to be the last article that we get to. Okay, but we're going to get to that because he found the lawsuit against them. Okay, so Armstrong Jr., defense attorney, argued that police investigators did not sufficiently ask his older brother questions. The defense claimed that Josh suffered from paranoia and schizophrenia and argued that his conditions could have led him to kill. We looked at multiple records throughout all different types of institution related to Josh, and his delusional state believed he was either God or the devil. Defense attorney Chris Collins said during the closing arguments Tuesday, we know that he had commanded voices in his head that told him to harm himself and others. However, the prosecutors argued that Josh's conditions began after the death of his parents and focused time analyzed the alarm system within the family's home. So, two things that they argue: allegedly that his brother did not have mental illness until after the situation happened, and also this is a strong defense that they use, which people believe is weak. The alarm system sounding off. So we're going to go into that a little bit, but allegedly what ended up happening is they said that the alarm system never sound and certain sensors didn't sound in the home. So if a perpetrator came from outside inside, then all of those things would have happened. But there's been testimony from the sister who was in the home at the time that talked about numerous times that the alarm wasn't working correctly. And also they brought up evidence in the last trials, definitely that I know of because I was following it, that the alarm system was defaulty, and they had a lot of evidence where the alarm system wasn't sounding off correctly. Allegedly, you're going to hear the grandfather talk about an incident where the alarm didn't sound off correctly and there was a burglary. Okay, so let's just keep that in mind. This was their strong defense when it came to allegedly what Armstrong Jr. could have done based on the circumstances. Okay. However, the prosecutors argued that Josh's condition begins. Hold up. So let's keep going down. Prosecutors said that the system was equipped with motion sensors that logged timestamps when motion was detected throughout the house. Using the timestamps, prosecutors argued that the murderer came from within the home, and the murder weapon was placed on the kitchen table on the first floor about 30 minutes before Armstrong called the police. The killer did not come from the first floor of the home, allegedly. He came from the second or the third floor, or else the floor motion detectives would have caught him, prosecutors Ryan Trask said. The alarm record and Armstrong's cell phone activities tell us that he was awakened the entire time. What was he doing for 31 minutes? Armstrong Jr. called 911 on the morning of his parent on the morning his parents was shot, saying that he was hiding in the closet in his third floor bedroom after hearing gunshots coming from his parents' bedroom on the second floor of their home. According to the probable cause affidavits filed in Harris County, responding officer found no sign of forced entry or any open entry or existing points of the home, leading to them to believe that someone already inside the home had committed the murders. Armstrong Jr.'s younger sister also was in the home at the time. The gun was used to shoot their parents, was left on the kitchen table on the first floor, and was accompanied by a handwritten note that said, been waiting for a long time, get me. No fingerprints or DNA were found on the gun, court records show. Now, we're going to keep that in mind because this young boy must be, really good and really planned this out because there was no physical evidence of him actually touching the gun or writing the letter. Investigators also found a bullet hole. Now, this was significant. The investigators also found a bullet hole on the ceiling of the second floor. So, this was in the parents' room, which corresponds to a hole on the floor of Armstrong Jr.'s bedroom that was covered with a pile of socks, court records show. The pillow and comforter with the 22 caliber bullet hole also were found in Armstrong's Jr.'s closet. According to court document, the prosecutors argue the finding illustrate that Armstrong had practiced using his father's gun. So this is what they're saying. So that's what I was thinking about. Like if he did it, like shot that gun the day of the parents being murdered, like that night, because it allegedly corresponds to the location of his bedroom and their bedroom. I think they would have woke up. So this had to happen a while ago. So they, instead of them saying that he did, because at first, I think in the first trial, they were saying that he did it that night, like he tried to shoot them through the floor and it didn't work. But they couldn't get that off because if someone did that, you would have woke up. So they took Armstrong Jr.'s story where he said he was playing with the gun a while ago and that happened. The juror for the first trial in 2019 could not reach a consensus after hearing more than 33 hours of testimony and deliberating for nearly 18 hours. While the second jury in 2022 heard from 38 hours of testimony and deliberation for more than 19 hours, the jury of the third trial heard more than 40 hours. So they gave a little bit more. But like we said, the first one too was a mistrial. The jury on the third trial heard more than 40 hours of testimony from 31 witnesses, different witnesses, and reached a verdict on its second day of deliberation. So this was brought to you, just a breakdown of it. This is Houston Public Media, the criminal justice section. We wanted to start there by giving you a breakdown of what happened, what in this particular trial, the third trial, and now we're about to do a flashback. Okay, so now you got a foundation of the prosecutor's arguments against Mr. Jr., Armstrong Jr., and why they, basically focused on him as a person of interest. Now, this was 10 days ago. Armstrong Jr. sentenced to life in prison.
Now to a case that we've been following for years now. After two previous mistrials, a jury found AJ Armstrong guilty of capital murder for the deaths of his parents in 2016. Now we've learned AJ has been booked into the Harris County Jail and he will not have the possibility of parole until he's 63 years old. This video shows AJ Armstrong leaving the courtroom on his way to serve a life sentence for killing his parents in their home in 2016. AJ was 16 at the time. Now, as we reported, a hung jury resulted in two previous mistrials. This third trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury deliberated 10 hours before making a decision. In this trial, prosecutors brought the crime scene to the courtroom, showing a makeshift staircase and bed.
It wasn't just drama. And the jury told us that was very effective to them. And so we're very glad we did.
Prosecutors say the 911 call, inconsistencies in his story, and manipulation of the crime scene also convinced jurors who used flip charts to reach a verdict. Meanwhile, the defense says that a notice of appeal has already been filed. Armstrong's legal team and family says they won't give up on him.
They're going to do the right thing, and they're going to see this thing through and hopefully get some justice for AJ.
So again, a federal lawsuit is also pending. AJ has accused Houston police of planting evidence.
Try this weird.
Okay, so basically that evidence that they are accusing them of planting was what I just highlighted. Allegedly, they found blood specks on the tag of the clothes, not the actual clothes, because I think they would have opted to use that, but the tag in the third trial. So this is where the federal lawsuit is going to highlight, and we're going to read that article at the end. So this is kind of like just to give you a heads up of what's going on. And just hold on, just to highlight, the third trial, they really wanted the guilty verdict, and I'm just going to leave that like that. So now what we're going to do is listen to the 911 call played in the courtroom of Armstrong murder. And this one was about 4 years ago, the first actual time that they tried to find him guilty. They tried him. I do apologize. Let's get to it.
It's all my fault. That's what jurors heard Antonio Armstrong Jr. tell 911 the night his parents were killed. Those emergency calls played this afternoon inside a downtown courtroom on day 2 of Armstrong's murder trial. Our Brandon Walker is live with what else was said during those calls. Brandon.
Well, Lauren, for one thing, chilling those calls, that audio, as jurors heard today. Court wrapped up some 30 minutes ago. Jurors also heard from a crime scene unit officer who responded to the scene that morning. His task was to take pictures and record video of evidence there on scene, beginning when he arrived, the outside of the home. Before that, though, as I mentioned, the jurors listened to those 911 audio recordings made by AJ Armstrong Jr. minutes after the prosecution alleges he killed his parents.
5314 Palmetto Street, timestamp 1:40 a.m., the morning of July 29th, 2016. Inside, a seemingly scared Antonio Armstrong Jr. on the phone with the 911 dispatcher, claiming minutes earlier he heard gunfire. Any medical attention needed? Asked the dispatcher. Yes, replied the then 16-year-old. Video recorded later that morning by a crime scene unit investigator for the Houston Police Department traces the trail to the second-floor master bedroom, the place where Antonio Armstrong Sr. and wife Dawn were shot. Both died. On the phone with 911, the couple's son, Junior, or AJ, appeared confused, panicked while answering questions. The dispatcher asks if medical attention was needed in AJ's parents' bedroom. AJ responded, yes, and their door is cracked open. Later, the dispatcher asks if gunshots AJ heard sound like a handgun, rifle, or shotgun. I'm not good with guns, AJ replies, but I guess like I don't know, 15 or something like that. I know my dad has a gun underneath the... God, where does he keep his gun? AJ asks aloud, eventually saying, I think he keeps it in the drawer right next to his bed. Houston police were on their way at this point, and AJ not a suspect then. The dispatcher then directs him to wake up his 12-year-old sister. Later, during that 911 call, AJ, who today stands trial, accused of killing his parents, can be heard saying something unthinkable, possibly self-incriminating. Quote, it's all my fault.
Yeah, but Armstrong's defense attorney says that only tells one part of the story. In fact, he says it's inaccurate. Coming up on Channel 2 News at 6, you'll get his response to that and what he says his client meant when he said those words. For now, we are live downtown. I'm Brandon Walker, KPRC Channel 2 News.
Okay.
There's one...
The commercial. Okay, so what we're going to do is when we do the part 2, we're going to find and listen to specifically what he said on a 911 call. And we're going to listen to some of the trial stuff. Okay, we're going to really get into it. But this is more for fundamental, so y'all can understand what has happened, what has been, the news has been broadcasting. and us get up to date for the ones who don't know. Okay. So teen double murder suspect gets ankle monitor. So this was in 2017. This was the first trial. The first time he had got arrested. It's been a long journey, long journey with this, and thousands of dollars on lawyers.
Teenager accused of killing his parents has agreed to the conditions of his release from jail.
Eyewitness News reporter Courtney Fisher was there when AJ Armstrong showed up at the courthouse this morning. Courtney, did you get a chance to actually talk to him, ask him any questions?
Yeah, Melanie, we did. I've been covering this case for 9 months now, and this is the first time I was able to look him in the eye, ask a question. AJ Armstrong did not want to talk about it. Court was quick, but then he came here, and that's why we're standing in front of this building right now. One of those bond conditions, the judge said he has to get fitted for an ankle monitor, and he's either doing it right now or he's just done that. Surrounded by his 2 attorneys, 2 grandmothers, and grandfather, AJ Armstrong walked into court. He didn't hide from our camera today, but he didn't want to talk either. Hi, AJ, do you want to say anything? Is there anything you want to say? Court was quick. AJ signed paperwork, pointed out his grandma as his legal guardian, and agreed to the judge's terms. He's under house arrest, must wear an ankle monitor, and will submit to random drug testing. All pretty standard conditions as he waits for trial. Less than 24 hours ago, the 17-year-old was released on a $200,000 bond.
First, AJ, can we ask you, how was your first night?
Please don't talk with AJ.
He's been in jail for nearly 9 months, charged with murdering his parents, Dawn and Antonio Armstrong. His father was a former NFL player. Prosecutors say AJ shot them while they slept. The defense says the killer was an intruder.
AJ's grateful to be out. He understands the seriousness of the situation. He's very grateful that the judge allowed him to be out. Obviously, it's his first day back out of custody for almost 9 months. He's spending time with his family, and we're getting ready to prepare his defense.
And I also asked AJ's 2 grandmothers if they wanted to talk. They have been quiet but supportive throughout this whole process. They said no comment.
All right. So as I highlighted, his family is supporting him in this situation. But I do just want to highlight what they said previously in the other video, where he self-incriminated himself. Now, they didn't even give the full context of what specifically he said is all my fault because of what or whatever. But when people are in situations like this is the first thing you don't do is say things like that, especially if you're not guilty. I know you can be emotional, but please be aware of what you say. Okay. I had a situation not like that, but where I had to shoot off a round of a gun, and it kind of riled me up, and thank God I had good people around me to say, hey, you better say your life was in danger. You better say this, because certain things, if you don't articulate yourself right, will be self-incriminated and they will use it against you. So just highlight that. They were using that self-incriminating, as well as we're going to highlight the new evidence that they brought in. Part 2, we're going to definitely dig into that, because that's going to, highlight the federal lawsuit against them for false evidence, putting in false evidence. This is about to get ugly. This is going to be big. Like, they really was trying to prosecute him. I don't know who was trying to be a district attorney or whatever, but please understand, when the situations like this and you have a prosecutor really, really going after people, sometimes they have a political motive. I don't know this prosecutor, don't know the name, but I'm just kind of like just talking. I have witnessed other individuals in situations where the prosecutors would be very sneaky, tricky, just to get enough cases under their belt to move forward and probably be the lead prosecutor or the district attorney. Okay. So just keep that in mind, because somebody's going for something to make it for 3 trials and to find new evidence. So Armstrong, an exclusive interview as he awaits retrial for his parents' murder. So this was 3 years ago. So we already know what happened with the first one. It was a mistrial. So this was just before the second one, which was in 2022, which was allegedly held up because of the COVID and a whole bunch of other stuff. So this is about an 8-minute interview. Let's see. Yeah, it's gonna be the intro. Okay, let's get to it.
The inner circle around Antonio Armstrong Jr. is fiercely protective. His grandmother's childhood friends, the girlfriend, AJ relaxes around them. And every so often, we get a glimpse of it. But it's tough to be a normal teenager when some people think you killed your parents. AJ's 2019 has been spent in a courtroom instead of a college classroom, learning forensics instead of football plays, surrounded by attorneys and judges and piles of evidence. This is reality for AJ. Not how he pictured it, because back in 2016, AJ's family was pretty perfect. Beautiful, successful, smart, and strong. Parents Dawn and Antonio Sr. were passionate about health and wellness. They owned gyms. He was an ex-NFL player.
I want you to pick back up those visions and those dreams that you once had.
A personal trainer, a motivational speaker, an assistant pastor at his mother's church. Dawn loved big, often posting on Facebook how proud she was of her kids, how deeply she loved Antonio. On July 24th, "This guy is my everything. He completes me in every way. He's my best friend. And after almost 2 decades, it's the simple things that make us happy." 5 days later, the couple would be dead, murdered while they slept in their Southwest Houston home, both shot in the head with Antonio Sr.'s gun from his nightstand. 1:14 a.m., AJ called 911, whispering to the operator he heard gunshots from his parents' room and he was hiding in a closet. AJ woke up his 12-year-old sister, Kara. Police arrived. AJ disarmed the security system, unlocked the door, and let officers in. Hours later, the 16-year-old high school junior was charged with killing his mother and father.
Why do this interview? Why talk to me?
I mean, I feel like people probably would like to hear from me and just hear the things that like I have to say, and just, cause I mean, I'm always quiet about things, so I'm sure they probably would like to know what AJ has to say.
Everyone has, I'm sure you've talked about this at length. I have to ask you just one time, did you kill your parents?
No, never, never.
What do you want to say to them?
I mean, for me, it's as simple as I didn't do it. It's just as simple as that. I've been adamant about that since the moment everything happened, from the moment I was on the phone till this day. I've said I didn't do it. I'll never change from that because I know it's the truth. And for me, that's just, you know, that's just the one thing that I really want people to know, because being in this situation and just that being a constant reminder that someone would even think that it's something that I would do. Like, it's just, like, it hurts. It's frustrating.
There are people out there watching this who think, yeah, he did it. He killed his parents. How do you take that in?
If you would have asked me that a couple years ago, I would have told you it genuinely bothered me. But now, with me growing up and maturing, I can't sit here and allow it to affect me, because at the end of the day, not everyone's gonna love me. I'm not gonna be everyone's favorite. People are gonna take things how they want to take things. You can't control that.
AJ has always said an intruder killed his mother and father, broke into the house without setting off the alarm, and shot Antonio Sr. and wife Dawn. But AJ was charged, spent 8 months in juvie jail, had dozens of court appearances, and nearly 3.5 years after the murders, finally, the trial. He was now 19 years old. While his high school friends were off at college, AJ sat in a courtroom looking at autopsy photos of his mom and dad, listening to police call him a killer.
Bring us back to those moments where you did break down in court. What was going through your mind?
I mean, it's just seeing pictures of my parents again, just sitting there and reading text messages. I just put myself back in the situation, and I just reimagine just having those conversations with my parents, whether I was getting yelled at or whether I was doing something good. Like, just to have that again, just like 5 minutes, if that's what it was, just to have that again with my mom, my dad, that's all I want.
It's the Actually Really Seriously
All right,
Best
let
Sale
me
of the
do
Year.
that real quick. You get a little emotional. Honestly, I wanted to show that because I want you guys to see him and his testimony and how he viewed things. Honestly, I'm going to be honest. You know, I can't really make a decision, based on allegedly some of the circumstances. But in my opinion, I'm trying not to get my, let me not get my opinion. Let's present the evidence, but I wanted to show him and how he feels, because it really touched my heart. And I see sincerity in him. I'm just going to be honest. That's what I see, so I'm just going to state that, and I'm not the only one, or his parents is not the only one who I think feel support for him. I think I support him, especially because this is the third trial. It says a lot to me, especially under knowing that more evidence was added, and the evidence wasn't directly on his clothes, but an item that could have been tampered with. So we're just gonna keep that in mind. I have to say that because, he remind me of a few young men that I know, young African American men who are young and were trying, and they end up doing bad stuff like, getting in trouble in school, not listening to their parents. But things like that can't define a whole person. Okay. So we have to keep that in mind. And that's one of the things I notice about police officers in the alleged law. You do one thing and it defines your whole person. Like, this is who you are. This is what it is. And it's not always like that. Okay.
Testimony from 36 witnesses. On the stand, former football coaches, security alarm experts, gunshot residue analysts, AJ's girlfriend, and his younger sister, who was the only other person in the house that deadly night. Seeing Kayra up there was painful.
I always say she's had it the hardest. She was 12 years old, and she's had to go through life. I was in jail. My parents aren't there. So she's just had a lot.
The jury deliberated for 19 hours, and in the end, they could not agree.
We are unable to arrive at a unanimous verdict without causing some members of the jury to do violence to their conscience.
What was that like to work for that long and then to hear that it was a mistrial?
It was frustrating. I was hurt. I was really upset, and I had built my faith. I was so adamant on the idea that I knew this was going to be it. Like, no one could convince me anyway, like anything else, that this was going to be it for me. And to have the opposite of that happen, it hurt. And it took me a second to kind of gather my thoughts. And once I did, my grandma was telling me, AJ, it could have been way worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could have been in jail. We couldn't be around you right now. You couldn't be going home with us tonight. Like, we couldn't be living to fight another day right now, but we are. And that's, at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
How are you going to do this again?
With the same group of support, same great attorneys, same what we did the first time together.
Are you prepared for an outcome that you don't want? What if they find you guilty?
Like I told you earlier, I refuse to think about that.
But AJ can't ignore the fact that spending the rest of his life in prison is a real possibility. His attorneys say this time around, the trial will be longer, and they have a new strategy.
There's some things that was not allowed in the first trial that we anticipated are going to come in this trial that are pretty eye-opening, pretty devastating to the state's case. So that's a little bit what we think may be different.
So there will be new evidence in this case or new witnesses?
Potentially, yes, ma'am. We're not going to get into our strategy this time like we did last time, but it's going to be longer. And tune in, you'll see.
AJ didn't testify during the last trial, and he won't this time.
Why not put him on the stand?
Well, he's already given a statement. He gave his statement to the police. He sat there and answered as many questions as they, asked. So do you think how difficult it would be for a 16, 17-year-old young man who's never been in court before, never testified, to go against a trained killer like John Brewer? I mean, he's gonna tear him up.
John Brewer, one of the 3 prosecutors on the case. We've asked the DA's office for an interview. They won't talk on camera, but gave us this statement after April's mistrial. Antonio Armstrong Jr. murdered 2 citizens of our county, and we will continue to fight for justice. AJ's family will keep fighting too. His grandmothers and grandfather, Antonio and Dawn's parents, are AJ's biggest supporters, who believe deeply in their grandson's innocence.
How have you changed and grown up?
I'd say this situation has definitely caused me to grow up a lot faster than I probably would have, just because I've been put in a situation where now my little sister actually does look up to me. I've had to take my faith to a level that most 19, 20-year-olds probably wouldn't take their faith to, just because I've been tested with different situations and things like that. So for me, it's just my circumstances have caused me to grow up, and I've had no choice but to just go along with it.
All right, all right. I put myself off the camera because I felt like I was about to cry. I'm not about to cry, but I really feel really bad for this young man. I'm gonna be honest. I really don't think that he did it. Just me being someone who, yeah, I may not believe it, but I read souls, you know. It's really hurtful to watch this and how much his family is supporting him and how studious he has to be and strong and have faith at such a young age, you know. It's not just his family that's supporting him. You have other community members that support him as well. So, this is the second trial that happened. Well, actually, this is from the first trial. I do apologize. This was the deadlock verdict. Let's just play that. Okay. I had to take myself off and get myself together because, yes, it bothers me because he remind me of a few young black men that I know, and it really hurt me to know that in my heart, if I'm just like their family, to know that they didn't do it. You know, come on. What grandmother and grandfather is going to support the grandson and say that they didn't kill their own son? I had with no doubt. So this is the deadlock jury in the first deliberation.
I think, Melanie, everyone was so surprised how quickly the jury sent that note about 50 minutes ago to the judge saying, as you said, we're deadlocked. Well, the judge says you haven't been deliberating long enough. Go back, try harder. It was 3 hours of deliberations yesterday, about an hour and a half today. And again, they are still at it now. We're approaching about 5 hours of deliberations. I want to show you video. Here's AJ Armstrong coming into court early this morning around 9 a.m. You really got to wonder, Mel, what is he thinking right now? Remember, if AJ is found guilty, he gets handcuffed and led out of court. He faces life in prison, parole after 40 years because he's charged as a juvenile. Back to the deliberations. What's happening now? We know the jury has asked to see 4 things. 1, the alarm logs, the text messages, the note left at the murder scene next to the gun, and the written magistrate warnings from when AJ was arrested. Of course, right now, Melanie, everyone wanting to know how long is this deliberation going to go on? There's really no way to know.
When you have a trial, number one, where you've got someone so young with so much at stake, combined with thousands of pages of documents, combined with the fact that the trial lasted for 2 to 3 weeks, those 3 factors would suggest that, yes, they're going to take a while to deliberate. How long that is, there is no formula, there is no magic.
Now, another thing to consider, Melanie, these jurors want to get back to their lives. They've already sacrificed so much time. Many of them have jobs, family life to get back to. We don't anticipating this going into Monday. Again, so far, 5 hours of deliberations. Of course, we'll keep you updated. As soon as they do reach a verdict, we'll be able to stream it live on abc13.com. We'll also make sure to send you a push alert to your cell phones.
Okay, so I'm just gonna put this person back on the camera again because on the screen because I didn't highlight. In part 2 is going to be a few people that we go into, okay? And we're going to listen to the testimony of the younger sister. We're going to listen to the testimony of the girlfriend. We're going to listen to the testimony of the alarm specialist. And then we're going to learn a little bit more about this gentleman who is the prosecutor. You remember I already said that it may be a prosecutor that if he keeps gunning for him, he may be looking for a bigger position in Georgia. So we're going to find out about who is John Brewer, the state attorney, and see how political he is. Maybe this will make a little bit more sense to me. Why is it like this push to prosecute this young man? And as well as, like I said, you see his family right by his side the whole time. His little sister was in the house with him and still supports him. It doesn't add up to me. So let's just keep on going. This one is, let's move this off the screen. Hope you guys are having an amazing Sunday. This is close to my heart. I don't know why, but really, I think this is something that we should be paying attention to, the Black community. It should go viral. If people have their feelings about it, they should support this young man. I don't know why. I don't think that he did it in my heart. AJ Armstrong mistrial jurors alternate shares what happened during deliberation. So this was 9 months ago. This was the second mistrial. So we got some of what the jurors have said. We'll probably watch the whole thing. It's about 13 minutes, hopefully not. but we want to get a understanding of all the working parts as much as possible of this trial so we can make the right decisions. You know what I'm saying? I mean, as far as supporting him, because when Black people, when we support, the job get done. And now he has a federal lawsuit against the prosecutors for falsifying evidence. So I think we need to really pay attention to this and get down to what's going on with him.
Totality of the notes, the fact that the jury has deliberated currently at 17 hours and 58 minutes.
So let me just clarify. This is the second trial. This is not the one right now. This is the second one.
Based on the fact that the court has read the Allen charge, the court on its own motion at this time is declaring a mistrial based on the fact that it's manifestly necessary.
Mm.
What was it that made you think that, without a doubt, he was guilty?
Well, there were several things. One, when he said that he saw someone running down the stairs, it was clearly made up. It was dark. He said he was African-American wearing a mask. Well, it was dark. And if it truly was your brother, Josh, wouldn't you recognize his physique? I could tell you any one of these people here running away because I've watched them for 3 weeks now. I know how they walk. And so I could, whether their feet turn out, their feet turn in, whatever, I would have known. And he would have known that was his brother. So that's clearly made up. And then from that time, someone running down the stairs, they were going to stop, put the gun down, open the kitchen drawers, write a note, and then leave while he's making a 911 call. No, they would have hightailed it out of there. And there was no one heard not the door, but the garage door. No one heard that going up and down.
You can feel it too when you're in a townhouse because the garage doors are underneath you, so you can get to the sound of vibrations of the floor when the garage doors open down. So no one talks about that.
Can you tell us what it was like to be in the room of deliberations and what that sort of, we heard it was 6-6 and then it was 8-4. Can you tell us sort of about how it started and how it progressed?
I feel like everyone was more so focused on the defense's distractions, how I want to put it, as far as Josh being a factor and the garage door and having some sort of access from outside people. So I felt there was so much attention on those factors that everyone just wasn't focusing on the actual facts. And they were just creating their own scenarios to where eventually more people were like, oh, okay, I can see why you would have reasonable doubt. And that's where it went from 6-6 to 8-4. And I'm in my position, I'm still trying to, even at that point, I'm going back and forth like, okay, well, am I missing something? So I think it was just a bunch of back and forth and confusing each other. Because at one point, everyone said, oh, we know he did it. We know he's not innocent, but we still have doubt. So I think it was just a bunch of confusion and people overthinking it and not really wanting to accept it for what it is.
What is it like when you have those moments of like, you were so adamant that he was guilty, and you're trying to convince each other? Like, how do you work through that?
Well, there's a moment where you feel like, okay, well, should I just agree with y'all? Like, am I the one that's not looking at it?
Let's just stop here because this is the jurors that's talking on the second trial in the mistrial. So let's just kind of hone into what she was saying. The first person had said that what turned her off was that they were trying to say it was the brother, but Josh, or gonna say AJ, couldn't make a definitive how can I say, a definitive description of who it was, couldn't identify if it was his brother. And this is why that juror felt like, okay, that's kind of suspect. But I do want to highlight, when you have your lawyers saying things, it doesn't mean that you're saying it. He never said that it was his brother. His family is kind of maybe thinking it could be the brother, but no one officially have said that. Okay, so I want to highlight that. So reasonable doubt came in because, well, she felt like he's like, that was a lie. They just throwing stuff in there. And that's what ended up happening in many trials, because they have to create some type of reasonable doubt based on the scenario and how law is supposed to work. If it's any form of reasonable doubt, they are supposed to acquit. period. But like I said, I don't think jurors understand their position as jurors because of the way that they are given the direction by the judge. Sometimes the judge will direct them in a manner where they feel obligated to prosecute sometimes. Okay. The next thing I want to highlight with the note situation, they said they found a note, but they didn't say they found a pen. So who has the time to write a note in that situation? Now, I know it sounds conspiracy, but some people do get murdered mysteriously and get set up, and it's a mystery, just like what we talked about with allegedly Mr. Obama's chef. We did a part 2 where it was more information that was disclosed, and certain evidence wasn't even like, it's not a trial or anything, but certain factors of what happened with his chef untimely death was held from the public, wasn't portrayed properly. And that's the same thing that can be happening here. Let's just keep that in mind. So because it was a note doesn't mean that the note was written at that time. Okay. If you have somebody trying to set up a murder, because it happens, it's not, that's how murders happen. It's either in the heat of the moment or it's a plot in the setup and they don't want to get caught. So I don't think someone will write a note in the house. It just doesn't make sense. They would write it outside the house. It had no fingerprints, both the gun and the alleged note, no fingerprints. So obviously it was gloves involved. So my next question is, if there are some type of protective gloves or whatever's happened they use, because there's no fingerprint, where are they? Because if AJ was the one that was smart enough to think about this is where reasonable doubt come in. And this is why I'm like, this thing is kind of suspect, because if he did do it and he had the means and the, motive and the mind, where is the gloves? Where is the gloves? He didn't leave out the house. The door was allegedly open when the cops arrived, and now it's a new factor that they were pushing, which turned the jurors off, which was the garage door access. Now, allegedly, and we're going to get more into this in part 2, this garage door access did not have the alarm on it. Now, we do know that you can access a garage without having the key, a push button, or you can buy a push button and access a garage, but a garage is pretty loud. So that's what they're saying. So how didn't he hear it if the person was able to access the garage? Like they gave examples of 5 different people accessing through the garage, coming in a house without them knowing, probably like family situations, things like that, just to highlight that there was access to the garage. Now, what I do know, there's a way that you can unlatch the garage manually from the outside and lift it up. You don't have to lift it up a lot. You just got to lift it up just a little bit quietly and sneak in. I didn't mean to curse. People who know, teenagers know how to do stuff. I ain't going to talk, but I saw some stuff, you just do a little bit shooby-dooby, sneak on in, as a teenager. And then you get in the house and nobody know you came in through the drive, through the car dock. This is where reasonable doubt could come in. So she said she got aggravated with that. The jurors were getting frustrated, as I can tell. And one of them said she felt like she was basically feeling like, should I go and, make him guilty? Like, am I missing something? So let's just keep that in mind, the jury's mindset. Also, when we're reviewing this, if you're ever a juror, this very tiresome, cumbersome. You're listening to a lot of information, but someone's life is on the line. So what I will highlight, if there's any reasonable doubt, you have to find a person not guilty, period. That is the role of jurors, but jurors are not doing that at this point. But let's just keep it moving. We're just going to keep it moving. Okay, so you heard specifically the juror said, oh, I know he did it, but there is some reasonable doubt. Okay, how do you know he did it? That's not the mindset you're supposed to go into a trial. You're supposed to just have a blank mindset. You don't know he did it because you were not there. So that shows some direct, how do I say, biased mindsets when it comes to jurors. But let's keep listening, okay? And this was trial number 2.
Y'all's perspective, so you kind of toggle back and forth with yourself. And it just gets to the point where I just kind of lost hope. I didn't want to keep arguing and trying to prove. It's like, okay, well, I just
How
frustrating
was
was
that for you?
You were shaking your head when she said, what you wanted to say something.
If the three of us had been in there with her,
Yeah, I needed some help. It would have been different. It's like I got to the point where just minds were being changed just because everyone has their own scenarios or assumptions of what could have happened based off the Josh factor and the fact that
And that's not what's supposed to happen.
they,
You hear what she said? That's not supposed to happen. No assumptions, no claims of things that could have happened. That's what I feel as a jury. You're supposed to look at the specific information that's put in front of you, okay, and make your decisions based on that. Now, you could think what if, could have, should have, but you need to base it on what is in front of you. So jurors don't know how to be jurors. And as you see, it started being a battle of the egos, the battle of, okay, this, let's convince everybody to think the same way. And that's not how it's supposed to be.
testified to the garage door and having some sort of access while the house was still armed. So everyone's main focus was on that as far as there possibly being another situation that could have happened.
Yep.
how frustrating is that for you?
I don't know.
To what end did you try to convince the others? What was your truth of what happened?
I don't know, because it just got to the point where I couldn't even talk anymore. Everyone kind of had their mind made up, but it was very frustrating to hear everyone say, and I mean everyone say, we know he's not innocent,
Wow.
but we still have doubt.
So this was a young lady who really felt like he was innocent, and she felt like she was being bombarded into making him guilty. And she got to the point that she didn't even want to talk no more. Could you even imagine being in a room, a group of people you don't know, all of these attitudes, things like that, and they think they know okay, when you deal with people and they get into a position of authority, because the jurors is in position of authority, egos takes place. Okay, so you may have someone who's in this position at work, like they're a director or manager, cashier, things like that. So you have different personalities taking play, and sometimes that they use that as methods to convince other people within the jurors to kind of move over to their side. So these are the things that happen in deliberation. That's why we're listening to it, because we can't always just run with he's guilty, he's not guilty. We want to, kind of learn how the court system works and how some of the defects occur, how some of the defects do occur. We have to figure out the defects and kind of address them, especially because the only people going to address this is us. If you're a juror, okay, you have to have the discernment, the wits, and the strength to stay on your hiatus. Because if it was me and I felt any reasonable doubt, ain't nobody in that daggone room is going to convince me just to move on just because of y'all. No, I'm not. My soul not burning. I'm not burning because I passed judgment on somebody else, being forced to pass judgment to ruin their life through this system. That's just how I feel. I'm very funny. So whatever you feel, that's what you stick to. I'm just saying, as a juror, you listen to the evidence, but he said, he feels, she feels should not be a factor on what your outcome should be. It should be the direct evidence. Okay. This was a problem when I was listening to this. So that's why I wanted to go over it with you guys.
I don't know.
Sorry, is there any one piece of evidence, or is it just sort of the totality that made you say he's guilty, he did this?
I would say seeing just the text messages from Dawn, the mom, and the parents, getting kind of a characteristic feel of who they were as people. I don't see them going to sleep not knowing that their home is secure. So to me, the house is secure. So I don't see there's no physical damage. Of intruders, or it's just, I mean, the murder is still in the house is pretty obvious to me. And then I feel like the note was just a distraction to make you think it was from someone else.
Was people 6-6 when you first started, or was there a different vote that all started at 6-6?
So when we first started our votes, we decided we're gonna do who thinks guilty, who's still kind of undecided, and who thinks not guilty. So we were all, I don't remember the exact votes on that, but then it got down to the point where we're like, okay, we'll take out the undecided and we'll just do who we think is guilty, who we think is not guilty. So that's when it was the 6-6. We started deliberating some more. People gave their, perception of why they think a certain way. So that's when we got 2 more that were like, okay, well, maybe it's not all the way proven because this and this and this is missing. So just a lot of back and forth. But I just feel like that came from the defense moving the distraction towards other parts to where the jury kept focusing on other possible scenarios.
Did anyone think that Josh was the real killer?
Sorry.
You're shaking your head. You definitely didn't.
Absolutely not.
That
Yeah,
was-
absolutely not. That was just a distraction that
Exactly,
the
just a
defense
concept.
lawyers.
I didn't know if anyone latched on to that at all.
Well, we weren't in that room, but yeah, we weren't in that room, but the three of us, never even thought that. Never even
Did
thought
anyone
that.
in the room with you talk about that?
I don't recall anyone saying that they think, oh, okay, Josh is a specific person. Yes, we all kind of kept him in mind as a possible suspect, but I don't recall anyone saying like, oh, I'm for sure it's Josh. So, it was just kept bringing him up because he was mentioned in the first place. So again, I think it was just used as a distraction, and it worked because everyone was so focused on, well, what if Josh this, and was he really with his girlfriend, and it's just a distraction in my opinion.
And how heated did it get in the room with everyone? Were people emotional with each other, abrasive at all?
Yeah, it got out of hand a few times. I had one person that was kind of the mediator. It was like, okay, guys, let's just take a break. Let's not talk about it for a few minutes. Give each other some time to get some mental clarity, and we'll get back to it. So yeah, it definitely got to some points where people were disagreeing. They didn't want to be open-minded and see a different side, and it got very heated and emotional for sure.
And we're gonna stop right there. That's the job of the jury, being open-minded and seeing all sides. And that, I think, is the problem with not just this case, but many cases where the person is already guilty in the juror's eyes because they're not educated correctly, as well as they already have a heart to prosecute. Okay.
The three others who thought AJ is guilty, are they three men, women?
We're just going to listen to about 2 more minutes of this. This is a 13-minute video, so I'm going to leave the link to this so y'all guys can listen to the juror's deliberation and get an idea, because we always just look at it from the outside, and a lot of people don't like going to jury duty. And this is probably the reason why. 1, you don't get paid and take a long time. But 2, you literally have someone's life in your hand. And this is a very important role, okay?
2 women and 2 men.
And it was 8-4, not guilty to guilty.
Yes.
There were some very strong personalities in that jury room.
What do you mean by that?
There was a particular one person, a very strong personality. And I think that person probably swayed a lot of people towards their opinion. Some of the people who weren't as strong, and they swayed them.
All right, we're going to stop right there, okay? We're going to move on to... I was about to X out. I don't want to do that. Now, who is AJ Armstrong? 59 banners called for charges dropped in 2016 case. So this was 6 months ago. This was around the time of these deliberations, okay? So let me see, can I put this in the comments for you guys? Because y'all know I like to upload things a little bit later. I mean, as far as in the description, y'all know me. Sometimes I just is there? Okay, let me go to the live. I don't know why I can't see the live. All right, I guess this is how the live look on Rumble. I don't know why it's looking like that, but y'all see it down there, YouTube. I'm about to put it there for you guys so y'all can listen to that whole deliberation between these jurors and, the pressure that they felt being a juror. So now we're going to move into some of the support. We're going to listen to a word from his actual grandparents that stands with AJ. This was 7 months ago. And AJ Armstrong uncle expressed frustration after trial delay in July. Now, this was 2 months ago. This was before this last trial took place. And then we're going to move on into the new trial. All right. All right, let's get to it. Oh, okay. So these are the banners that was around Atlanta. Is it Atlanta? My crazy self. I think this is Atlanta or Texas. Don't kick my butt. I think it's Atlanta. It is out here in Atlanta. I ain't crazy. There are people. I do apologize. in Houston, you have people who are
Here's how to legally
supporting him. It's not just the parents, okay? So let's hear a word from the grandparents.
New at noon, the pretrial hearing of AJ Armstrong just wrapping up, and the judge made some scheduling changes. Armstrong charged with killing his parents in 2016, and this is the first time we have seen him in court since his second mistrial in October. Ugochi Iloko was there when family members spoke about the case.
In an emotional interview in this very hallway is where AJ Armstrong's grandparents pleaded for the DA's office not to continue with another trial, making it the third time they are trying this capital murder case since the death of AJ's parents. AJ stood in front of a judge just a few hours ago waiting to see when a new trial would be, and was also seen crying in the hallway along with family members. A judge ordered that the jury selection will begin February 24th, but testimonies won't be heard until March 20th. The reason for the gap is because the prosecution was worried about spring break and the rodeo inconveniencing jurors. AJ's grandpa on his mother's side and grandma on his father's side both say they can't move on as long as this murder case is hanging over their heads.
We have stood by our grandson's side every day since 2016. Everyone in the family fully supports him and believes in his innocence and the charges. Our family thought and grieves.
Aww.
AJ's parents were gunned down in their Bel Air home in 2016. There was no sign of forced entry, and AJ was inside the home. His defense attorneys argue that someone else committed this crime and that another trial would be a waste of taxpayers' money. We also know in both trials, the jury was not able to come up with a verdict. The prosecution also didn't want to give a statement today.
And breathe.
Right. So this is the grandfather, and you see AJ right there. AJ had to give his grandfather support in this situation because it's heartbreaking. My thing is, how does the prosecutor wants more justice than the actual father of the father and the mother of the mother that's still supporting their grandson? Okay, so I just wanted y'all to hear words from the family directly, and now we're going to hear frustrations. AJ Armstrong uncle expressed frustration after trial delay. Now, this is the third trial that's coming up right now. Well, that we're getting just over. Okay, we're working our way through it. This is a lot, and there's more to come. But I do want to say this. One of the things that I want to find in part two when we go into this is allegedly there was brought to their attention, and I don't know if the uncle said it at this time, but it was brought to the family attention that allegedly, now this is alleged, we don't know. If I find it, I'm going to be able to share it with you so you can know the source that I heard it from, that allegedly Mr. Armstrong himself, who was a pillar of the community, football coach and things like that, and he wasn't in football at the time, allegedly had dealings with some of the ex-trafficking in the Houston area, allegedly, and bad dealings with bad people. Family members have said this. Me following this, people around him allegedly said that some things has happened to make them know that like a few days prior, allegedly, someone unknown came to the home, banging on the door, demanding to see Mr. Armstrong, which allegedly looked like some bad characters in their eyes. So we're just throwing that out there. I'm just throwing that out there because that's the alleged gray area in this case, to highlight that Mr. Armstrong's partner, now hopefully I'm going to be able to find, the video content for part 2 and possibly part 3 of his partner untimely demise, his business partner who died 2 years after this situation in alleged car accident, a head-on collision, something like boom, yeah. How can I'm really trying to just be straight, but sometimes things like that has happened around Killery. Okay. Y'all know who I'm talking about. If you don't know, y'all better go look it up because, baby, funny deaths happen around certain people in political fields. I just got to throw that out there that you be like, how did that happen? You know, head on collisions, people, planes being blown up, things like that. So don't think that just because it was a car accident, oh, it's just a little weird. His partner, the person who was allegedly named in some of these off the market transactions with their business. Just throwing that out there. Okay. Just throwing that out there. You know, we got to throw that allegedly. Now, AJ Armstrong uncle expressed frustrations after trial delay. Let's get to it. Let's skip this commercial. Okay.
Hey everyone, this is the Bench exclusive interview here with Harvey Armstrong, uncle of Antonio Armstrong Jr., the brother, if I'm correct, of Antonio Armstrong Sr.
Yes.
So coming out of court, we learned that things will not get underway today. How do you feel about all of this?
Frustrating. There's so much more I can say, but my one word to describe today is frustrating. Flying in from Atlanta to be here last Monday, did the same thing last night, came in, and then you have another delay, another postponement. And we've been waiting 7 years. Enough is enough.
Why? Well, tell me, why is it important for you to be in the courtroom? Why do you want to be there?
I really want to see what's going on. I want to see what's being presented concerning his case. And we had shirts on earlier about free AJ. It's really about justice for AJ. Justice. So I want to be here as a concerned citizen. I want to be here as an uncle, as a family member, because I believe and we all support AJ. We all, as a community, as a family, we know he's innocent. And I don't want to see another young man, black or white. I'm gonna live by you, so I want to say black, but it's both. We just want justice for all, and we want my nephew to receive the proper justice and let the evidence be presented on both sides equally.
One of the attorneys that we have on the show, The Bench, has said each day that Antonio is out free with everyone is a good day for you all. Do you believe that is until you get a verdict? Is that?
Oh yes, most definitely. You know, for him to just be out to live, to spend time with his family, with his son. I mean, his days are cut short. He's limited. He's still on certain things with the ankle limitations. But yes, for him to be out and to be able to live his life to somewhat to the fullest, but we want his life to be lived as you and I live, freely, continuously, 24/7. He can do what he pleases to do. And that's what we want, because we know he's innocent. Think about this, 7 years, knowing you're innocent, you're going through all this, you know, all this celebrity. This is not what you want, cameras following you around, being accused of something like that.
You said we know he's innocent. Explain to me more about that. Talk more about that.
Well, of course, I'm by him, family member, but even as a community, as a person in the city, of just a citizen, you haven't given me enough evidence to say that you did it. He did it. So no, and I know he did it.
It's all speculation.
But even 2 other juries felt the same way. He's had 2 hung juries. So both of them have said, hey, you didn't do it. So why are we still here? That's the question. Houston, why are we still here 7 years later with postponements, with 2 hung juries? And we still here? Taxpayers should be up and raw. They should be disappointed that we're still paying for this. I mean, come on, it's time to let the kids go home. 7 years. Enough is enough, Houston.
So I'm just giving you a heads up. The NFL allegedly supports him. He's not wearing that shirt just to wear the shirt, okay? Because if he didn't and it had no part to the NFL, they will definitely have a problem with this, okay, and not let him air this. So I'm just giving you a heads up. The NFL, and there's certain players that supports AJ Jr., and they're going to help fund the federal lawsuit, and they've been helping funding his defense. So not only does his family believe it, he has people within the NFL as well that support him.
You mentioned the evidence. What do you think the evidence shows in this case?
Well, of course, I have to stay in compliance of what Judge Kelly said today, and there's so much I can't say. And I don't want my emotions to get caught up and say the wrong thing. But I'm just going to stay in compliance and say we just want justice for AJ. And that's what I'll say. I'll just be political. And sometimes being political is not always the right thing. And sometimes you can be so political that you lose sight of the truth. Enough said on that. See, I'm letting my emotions roll, man. I got to stop because I have to stay in compliance with the judge, and I don't want to get my personal thoughts and feelings involved in it. I want to stay facts.
You mentioned emotions. How do you feel?
I'm frustrated. I'm pissed off. I'm hurt. I'm sad because I lost a nephew and his wife, and now I'm seeing how they're doing my nephew, great nephew, how they're treating him. And it's just very frustrating. I see this young 16-year-old, because in my eyes, he's still 16. Of course, he's 22 now, and about to be 23. So 7 years later, but he's just being mistreated and unfairly accused, and they won't give him his life back. And it's time for him to have his life back.
Have you spoken to him since starting all of this over?
Oh yes. We talk all the time. I mean, yes.
Where's his head at right now?
His head is so optimistic and so positive. That's when you know you're innocent. That's when you know you're innocent. You can tell in his behavior, in his attitude, in his conversation. And that's the beauty of this whole thing. His attitude is so upbeat, so positive, because he believes in God. And he knows God is going to see fit to make sure that he gets what he deserves, and that's freedom. And his attitude shows that in his behavior, in his conversation. He smiles more than me.
Let me ask you this. Why was it important for you to talk with us today? Why did you want to talk with us today?
Well, I really didn't, but somebody chased me down, but I won't go there. I just wanted to say I wanted the public in Houston to know what we after here is justice. We're really after justice. It's not just about my nephew. It's about justice in the city of the Harris County area. We want justice. We want it to be fair for all. And so for me, it's just very important to let the public know, guys, all we want is justice for AJ, but justice for all. Fairness is for all. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Filipino. We just want justice.
We are now being pushed back. We'll start July 31st. Hopefully things will wrap up in August. You've mentioned the previous 2 hung juries. Do you think this should just be dropped all around?
Oh, yes. Let me look in the camera. Yes. I think it should be dismissed. And that's my prayer right now. Let's go home, guys. Let's go home. Let's let this kid go home and get back to his life. Now it's time for a dismissal. And now, like I said, I don't want to get caught up in the political. Sometimes you get so far in the water, you can't turn around. It's time to let this go. It's time to let AJ go home and be free to live his life with his wife and his 3-year-old son.
Let me just stop right here. You keep hearing him say, it's getting political, it's getting political. And it's so crazy because that is kind of like what I was thinking earlier. What is pushing this prosecutor to come after him 3 times? What point does he have to make when you have the family, all of his family supporting him and saying he did not do this? Go look for someone else. Look under a rock. Look for other evidence. But another thing I want to highlight, this guilty plea seems to be all off of circumstantial evidence, and the circumstantial evidence meaning what they have said, things like that. They have no witnesses, and allegedly now the new speck of blood that was on the adhesive tape. Okay, so that's the new evidence. So let's just keep that in mind. They never really had any evidence. That's why I said if AJ Jr. did this, he really thought it out. He had to think it out because there was no gloves in the house. They disappeared. No fingerprints on the gun, no gun residue, because they never mentioned gun residue. If you shoot guns, you have gun residue on you. Why didn't they find any speck of clothes with gun residue? So these are the things that we want to keep in mind, because these are the things that was not presented to the jurors. And that's why I say jurors need to be educated on how to be jurors, which is the general public. Me and you talk about it, like, have these conversations, because when you get in positions, you're basing it on your emotions and assumptions, except not exactly what's in front of you. Okay, so he kept highlighting that it was that he keeps saying political, as well as I do want to highlight this, and this is what really touched my heart, honestly, because I'm gonna have to do it. AJ Jr., his aura is a really beautiful aura to me that I see. That's why it really touched my heart and I cried because I feel like this young man is being prosecuted for something he didn't do. His family see him being positive, trying to be a beacon of light. You can see when he was with his grandfather, he was literally giving his grandfather comfort, you know. So I'm not saying that hard killers don't care, but he seems like he has a lot of compassion. And for him to be still positive in this situation, I'm just going to reference it to a Bible story, Jacob in the Bible. He was sold by his brothers into Egypt and he was jailed. He was accused of being, you know, sexually explicit towards the queen at that time when he got down there. Ended up being in jail for 7 years and still having this optimistic attitude. Now I'm sharing this with you guys because this could be a moment of time for people who are going through really, really difficult situations. You know, I'm just kind of branching off of this because this is a very difficult situation that, you know, how you handle it says a lot. And when you have faith, God is going to make it happen. And it's so crazy. I do have faith in this situation. I pray this young man do. Jacob basically ended up being the Pharaoh of Egypt. He, you know, God let him out of jail. He helped, you know, really prominent people, and he really helped a lot of people and his family. So we just going to pray. I have to share something biblical with you. Like I said, I know biblical stories. I'm not going to share a line with you. I'm going to share stories with you so you can get inspiration, kind of look at it, you know, from another perspective, because the Bible stories are about our people. They're Black. Jacob was Black. Okay. So he really reminded me of the mannerism that Jacob will have, like an optimistic, you know, dreamer, because that what Jacob was. I'm just throwing that out there. But anyway, yeah, let's move forward. You can listen a little bit more of what the uncle was saying and how he feel about another 3 minutes.
It's time.
This may sound crass, so forgive me. If it's not AJ, then we have yet to find out who have committed these crimes.
Your question is?
Who do you think have committed these crimes? Do you think investigators should be still out there?
Oh, yes. Oh, most definitely. And I won't go into that answer. I do have my thoughts. And that's what frustrates me too, as well. Sometimes you're so busy looking at AJ, but they're not looking at others. And there's so many things out there. And I have to stop, guys. I can't. But yes, I think the investigation continue looking at others. And do I have some people, some other ideas? Yes.
Yes.
I won't go there. I can't go there. And like the judge said, no speculation. So I just want to try to.
But he say no speculations. Now you hear what he said. The family has a thought of something else happening, some other individuals that they're not just looking at all. And the judge saying no speculations, but everything they brought into the court is speculation because they have no evidence except for the new evidence that was brought into the third case. So that's why it really makes me feel away and throw me off, because no speculations on this side, but you have a whole prosecutor's office the whole case is built on speculations in the scenario. Honestly.
Facts. The facts is the family, this community supports AJ, and we all believe he's innocent. And we just want this to go away and be dismissed and not just pushed under the rug. It needs to be dismissed. It's been 7 years, 2 hung juries. It's time to go home. It's time to let the family, the Armstrong family, go home in peace and live his life.
You said it a couple of times. You want to stick with the facts. What are the facts as you know it?
The facts is, I'm not going to let you get me caught up in that.
You know, that's my job as a reporter.
I know. I've been behind a camera before, but the facts is, I can give you the answer. The facts is justice for all. We seek justice for all. We seek justice for AJ concerning this case. And that's all we want. We want justice for AJ, justice for the whole city. Any kid that shows up in this courtroom in front of those judges, we want it to be fair for all of them. And my nephew is at the head of the list. Why? Because I'm an Armstrong, and I'm a proud Armstrong. And that's my nephew. I'm going to continue to believe in him and believe in the fight and believe in the justice system.
And that's been it.
Okay, so basically he has serious doubts of the validity of them actually keep continuing to come after his nephew. Also, they have some doubts or assumptions of other individuals that may need to be looked at and not being looked at because this man been pursued for 3 whole trials over 7 years. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the third capital murder trial for AJ Armstrong after 2 hung juries to begin February. So this is the one that began, and this is just after this interview that we just showed you. Okay, we're making our way down to the timeline. Y'all know if I'm going to show y'all something, I'm going to break it down and show y'all all the facts. And then, you know, I'll give my opinion and things like that. But I want people to make decisions based on everything, because when you see things on YouTube, the news, it's just parts, bits and parts, especially when it's something political or they have political affiliation or even have their own view of the situation, is going to heavily mark that. Now, you see, I have my own view, how I feel, but I'm going to show both sides. We're going to even watch a video of the prosecutor's office in their interview about why they continue to pursue him. Okay. And that. So I just wanted to tell you why I share the things that I do. It's kind of long, but it's better for us to look at it like this than having bits and pieces. And then we're sitting here making decisions on people's whole lives based on feelings and emotions. Okay. So they feel like he's being railroaded. It seems like the family feels like this young man is being railroaded.
We just heard from the grandparents of AJ Armstrong, that 23-year-old who's facing his 3rd trial for the murders of his parents back in 2016. Well, ABC 13's Charlie Etzedy is live at the courthouse. And Charlie, what did they say and what happened during the hearing today?
Good morning, Melanie. Yeah, the grandparents of AJ Armstrong were incredibly emotional earlier this morning when they did speak out to cameras. They read a prepared statement, and so you'll hear from them in just a second. But we do know that jury selection for AJ Armstrong is going to start on February 24th. He is being tried once again on capital murder charges for the shooting deaths of both of his parents. That happened back in 2016. Now, his first 2 trials, both of them ended in a hung jury. So now we are on to trial number 3. And so this morning was a pre-trial hearing, and AJ showed up to court with his grandparents and his attorney. And the pre-trial hearing itself was pretty quick, mostly just a lot of back and forth about trying to pick a date of when jury selection can start. So AJ's defense team, we spoke to them after the hearing. They say they are ready to go. His attorney says that he knows every single detail about this case inside and out and still maintains that AJ is innocent. Now, in the last 2 trials, both juries were unable to come to a unanimous verdict. So in the 2019 trial, the jury was stuck 8-4 in favor of a guilty verdict. But in 2022, the opposite happened, where the jury was gridlocked 4-8 in favor of not guilty. So prosecutors on this case declined to give any kind of a comment after today's court hearing. But we did also speak and hear from AJ's grandparents from both sides of his family. The father of Don Armstrong and the mother of Antonio Armstrong Sr. were both incredibly emotional, speaking out. They say their family has been through enough with both of these trials, now about to go into a 3rd one. And they just said that they cannot move on with their lives as long as this continues to move through the courts.
We lost our beautiful daughter
And our
my
son.
son.
Yes.
Our family has been through so much hell behind all of this. We relive their death every time we have to come back to trial. We've watched the Houston Police Department and the Harris County District Attorney's Office hide evidence, lose evidence, and mishandle the investigation in this case through 2 trials. What evidence are they going to bring to this trial the 3rd time? Or is the district attorney's office attempting to bankrupt our family?
Hold on, still
and will they just keep on trying this case until they get the results that they're looking for?
And while the grandparents were speaking, AJ Armstrong got visibly emotional. You could see tears streaming down his face. So just a lot of emotions happening after this pretrial hearing. And so the judge also mentioned that testimony in this case is probably not going to start until March 20th, so almost an entire month after jury selection, because they want to do it after spring break happens in order to accommodate the jury. So Melanie, it looks like this family is now starting to gear up for yet another trial for AJ Armstrong, but obviously not too happy about it. And so that's the latest here from court in downtown. I'm going to toss it back inside to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Charlie. We'll be watching it.
All right, so you see how the grandmother feel. You saw the video of how the grandfather feel. They feel like the district attorney is literally trying to bankrupt their family by pursuing this again and again and again. So now let's get into a look back. This is just a 2-minute. If people didn't, get the whiff of it, because there are some more people watching right now. Just a quick 2-minute review of what has occurred over the last 7 years. This is really, really out of control.
Anchor Caroline Collins, this murder case for years now, and Fox 26 anchor Caroline Collins joining us here tonight with exactly how we got to this decision. Caroline.
Yeah, Anthony, AJ Armstrong's conviction today comes after going through 2 previous murder trials. We look back tonight on the timeline of AJ Armstrong after his arrest in 2016. July 29th, 2016, Dawn and Antonio Armstrong Sr. found shot to death inside their Southwest Houston home. AJ called 911 and was taken into custody. In just hours, he was charged in those killings. At the time, friends of that couple were stunned.
You can't get your head around it. We just need a little time to be able to digest it, just to be able to pray a little bit about this, because it's stunning, to say the least.
So you never know really what happens in a household.
Fast forward nearly a year, our cameras capture AJ Armstrong walking out of the Harris County Jail after he posted a $200,000 bond. AJ would find himself back in the courtroom in March of 2019 for his first trial that, after less than a month, ends in a mistrial.
We're proud of them going back there and deliberating and taking their oath seriously.
But the legal troubles were not over for AJ Armstrong. His second trial started in October of 2022. He's now a father and is married. Just weeks later, it was another mistrial.
At some point, when is enough enough? And that's where we are. The family is sick and tired of it. AJ's sick and tired of it.
Jury selection in AJ's third trial starts in May of this year, but the trial is put on hold briefly while a judge considers possible new evidence in the case. The trial officially began in July, and less than a month later, the jury delivers their verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Antonio Armstrong Jr., guilty of capital murder as charged in the indictment.
Yes, certainly a long time coming, all of it coming to an end today. Now, you can scan this QR code on your screen, which will take you to where you can download the Fox 26 News app.
So that's the verdict of the 2023 verdict. As you know, this happened in August. That's why we're talking about it right now. This is the third time that they have tried this young man. Yes, my face looked like my heart hurt. It does. It does. I feel so bad for this young boy and his family. They're fighting for him. And it's weird because his family is the same family of the people who were murdered, which is his mother and father. So it's so crazy how he has this support. Okay. It's not crazy, but So Armstrong trial Jr. deliberates in the third capital murder trial for the 2016 shooting. Let me see. Was this August? Let's just listen to this little short video, and then we're going to get into Armstrong murder trial arguments, the closing arguments. And then we're going to get into a video of new DNA evidence shown to jurors in Antonio Armstrong Jr.'s trial. And as we mentioned, the new evidence in this third trial was allegedly speckles of blood that was found under adhesive tape that was on the clothes that he wore that day. They did not say that they found specks of blood directly on the clothes outside of the adhesive tape, and they did not say that they found gun residue on his hands or on the clothes, because if you shoot a gun, it's going to be on your clothes. So this is why there is a federal lawsuit being pursued by the family for basically tampering with evidence and putting in false evidence. Okay. So yeah, this is heart wrenching, but let's get to it.
With us today, I'm Ron Trevino.
And I'm Sharon Min Chow in for Reka Mudaraj. Happening right now, the jury has begun deliberating in AJ Armstrong Jr.'s capital murder trial. He is accused of killing his parents when he was a teenager back in 2016.
This is the third time Armstrong's fate has been in the hands of a jury. The two previous trials ended in hung juries. And today, both sides spent their closing arguments trying to make sure that doesn't happen again.
There's no evidence at all as to what AJ was doing. This is all speculation.
That text message from a mother to a son was also a text message from a victim to their eventual killer.
We have team coverage. Let's send it first to Adam Bennett, who has been a regular fixture inside that courtroom for this trial. Adam.
Sure, man, the jury has been deliberating just over 2 hours at this point. We heard that they did ask the judge to send back some of the evidence in this case, and there's a lot of it. They heard 11 days of testimony in this trial, and today got a pretty marathon recap of a lot of the facts in this case. I'll show you some video here, and it's worth noting that this is the first time all trial that the judge, Kelly Johnson, has allowed us to have cameras inside of the courtroom. Prosecutors started off closing arguments with the words of victim Dawn Armstrong in a text to AJ shortly before the murder. Quote, "The alarm doesn't lie, you lie." Prosecutors told the jury that alarm system and other technology like the house, motion detectors, cell phone records, and Armstrong's actions shortly before the murder all point to him as the killer. But defense lawyers questioned the accuracy of the alarm records. They suggested Armstrong's older brother, Josh, could be responsible. They also labeled recently discovered blood from victim Antonio Sr. found under a sticker on Armstrong's shirt as cross-contamination and said no other forensic evidence points to AJ Armstrong.
Cross-contamination.
He's the only person awake at the time his parents were killed. He's the only person handling the murder weapon right before his parents died.
How
Not
do you
just
know he's
handling
handling
it,
it?
firing it. Not just firing it, lying about it. He's the only person trying to set the house on.
Now let's listen to this, because you see how he's talking. This is all speculation. That's why I don't understand how the judge said you can't speculate, but everything he's saying is speculation, because he's like, he's the only person who tried to set the house on fire. He's the only person. The sister was there. They had the brother that may have assets, and they also had stories of people accessing the house through the garage. But he was the only person, and this is how they convinced jurors of how to think. Please pay attention to word magic. You have to be very strong to not fall for word magic. I'm gonna just be honest, because you hear people saying that, you be like, yeah, he was the only person. That's all you hear. But then if you got a strong mind, you're gonna look at all the evidence again and say, wait, where is the actual evidence? Where was his hands? Where's the gloves? Like, we got to start thinking about this stuff. So this is all circumstantial to me, in my opinion.
On fire with his parents inside.
Where's the fingerprints?
Thank you.
Bloody clothes, shoes, gloves, something.
Thank you.
That puts AJ in the bedroom pulling the trigger. There is nothing.
Oh my God.
If convicted, Armstrong will automatically be sentenced to life in prison with parole eligible after 40 years. He's not eligible for the death penalty because of his age at the time of the crime. 9 men and 6 women make up those 12 jurors and 3 alternates. You may remember the first 2 trials ended in mistrials due to deadlocked juries that deliberated 19 hours and 18 hours respectively. Stay on top of this and bring you updates at 5 on the latest for this trial. Ron?
All right, thank you so much, Adam Bennett. And KHOU 11 legal analyst Carmen Rowe also spent the morning in the courtroom. She joins us live now. Carmen, what are your biggest takeaways from both sides?
Ron, we saw a heavyweight bout this morning in the courtroom. Some of the most heated arguments we've seen in this third capital murder trial. They included personal attacks by the lawyers, attacks on the credibility of witnesses, and of course, on the evidence.
And how long do you expect this jury to deliberate? I mean, that's hard to even predict.
Well, we do know that this jury is being sequestered, meaning they are not going home to their families unless and until they reach a verdict. And as Adam pointed out, last trial, we had 2 days of deliberation. I don't expect that will be the same with this sequestration order in place.
You want to go out on a limb and have any kind of prediction about this
What
case?
was that false evidence?
You know, Ron, I predict that this is the last AJ Armstrong trial we're going to see. I think this jury is going to reach a verdict, and the question is going to be when.
Like she said, I think this is going to be the last trial. They're going to find him guilty. And I think of that guilty verdict was made on behalf of the alleged the defense is saying it's cross-contamination, but of the actual evidence that was brought, the new evidence, it wasn't on his shirt. It wasn't on his shirt. It was on a actual adhesive tape. Okay. This is troublesome. I'm gonna tell you, it's very troublesome.
What happens if they don't reach a verdict again for the 3rd time?
Well, at that point, the district attorney's office is going to have to decide whether they're going to continue to pursue trials in this case, but that's a possibility, hopefully one we will not see in this case.
All right, thank you so much.
So we're gonna move forward to where they presented the evidence at, a short take. I do have the full deliberation of the closing arguments, but I'm gonna edit it for our next live, and then we're gonna kind of hit the key elements because there's like 3 hours of content that I have to go through, so you guys can have the focus information. Okay, so we're not gonna watch all of the court stuff, but I want you guys to get a breath, and I hope you do get a breath and understand what's going on with this trial, so you guys can make a conscious decision if you want to help participate as far as support the family. Don't keep your eye on it, whatever may be the situation. But this is bothering. This bothered my heart. I don't know why I feel so bad for this young man.
It is day 6 of the Antonio AJ Armstrong Jr. trial. Jurors got to see life-size models of Don and Antonio Armstrong Sr. on a bed in the middle of a courtroom. AJ is accused of killing them 7 years ago. No cameras are allowed in the courtroom, but our team is covering every aspect of this case within our coverage called The Bench. KPRC2's Rowan Balogan was in the courtroom when all of this unfolded. Rowan, big question here. Jurors get to see the DNA evidence that caused the case to be delayed a month?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Keith, the jury was about to see.
Delayed a month so this evidence could get in. Where did it come from?
That evidence and the investigator and hear from the investigator who found that new DNA evidence. But the judge called things to an end for the day, allowing the juries to leave until returning tomorrow morning. At the stand was investigator Celestina Rossi. She is a blood splatter and reconstruction expert from the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. She's assisting in this case. Now, take a look at this video we captured of her leaving the courtroom today, along with prosecutors. During her testimony, Prosecutor John Jordan and her started with a staircase. Now, this is why it's so important. During AJ's interview with Homicide, he said he saw someone leaving his parents' bedroom, and they had a demonstration of life-size figures to show that staircase here. Now, Jordan wanted to show how close AJ would have come to the alleged suspect. So he had the jurors walk around to see how close that was. Then they pulled out that life-size bed with mannequins to represent the Armstrongs. The defense quickly objected to the height and the size of the bed. However, the judge still ruled to let it in for demonstration purposes only. From there, prosecutors talked about blood splatter, and that's where we learned Sergeant Rossi believed that there were 4 shots, but investigators only found 3 shell casings. Now, Rossi talking about those 4 shots were her opinions. Now, the jury was very attentive for most of the day as they were able to see those demonstrations play out in front of them. Now, tomorrow we will finish from that new DNA evidence, and the defense attorney Rick DeToto will have time to question Sergeant Rossi about everything she said today and her expertise and opinions that she's offered to the jurors today.
All right.
Reporting live from downtown Houston, Roman Balogan, KPRC 2 News.
Okay, so allegedly that new evidence that they had submitted was the tape that they found. So when we get into the close, because they didn't record everything was not live in the courtroom, but the closing argument was the murder trial closing argument was, as well as the prosecutor closing argument. So we're going to hear the defense and the prosecutor closing argument on the next part 2 that we do, we're also going to look at a full interview of AJ Armstrong's uncle again speaking out after the verdict. No, I think we may show that at the end of here, and we also have a full interview of the prosecutors in AJ Armstrong case. That's a whole hour and a half interview. So those 3 I'm going to cut up so we can get the facts, and then we're going to review it. I'm going to react to that possibly next week, okay? But I just want to give you a heads up of what we're going to be listening to and what we got going on here when we're watching this trial. Well, the end result of the trial and how they're going to respond to the situation. As we already know, there's a federal lawsuit that's being put against the prosecutors for falsifying evidence. Now, let's get to this article right here. And this is, we will never stop fighting for AJ. Legal team family members react to the guilty verdict in the life sentence. This is his wife. Now, this is the young lady who he was on the phone with the day of the murders happening, allegedly. That's his little sister. So, you know, when it comes to, oh, that's so loud. Let's see. Hold on. Let me see what this is. It's so loud. Okay. This is a little bit of what happened in the courtroom. We're gonna the bench. So before we get to the bench video, let's get to this, because the bench video is long. This is what we're gonna probably show next. This is after the trial. Okay, bear with me, guys. It's a lot of information, but I want to get y'all the most accurate and y'all get a good idea of what's happening to this young man. Because I want to know all this stuff before I be up here crying. And I've been crying because I feel so bad for this young man. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest. His mannerism remind me of my son. I'm gonna be honest. Like, he remind me of my son, his mannerism. I don't know why. So that's probably why it's bothering me. Yes. My son's a good guy. He's too much of a good guy. He's too nice to people. I'm the one that tell him to be mean. Get Bucky up. Stop giving him chances. But that's what I just got that. That's probably why I feel the way I feel. So maybe I'll be a little bit biased, guys. I'm sorry. Let's listen.
Their fight for justice is not over. AJ Armstrong's family says their fight for justice is not over. Armstrong was convicted in the 2016 murder of his parents this week. This morning, a civil rights attorney for his family says they received a complaint against one of the state's expert DNA witnesses, and they claim that this complaint proves the evidence was planted. But as Troy Kless reports, one of our experts says that allegation may be hard to prove.
AJ Armstrong's family still standing by his side after a guilty verdict.
If I had an inkling of a thought that AJ Armstrong, my grandson, killed my son and my beautiful daughter-in-law, we wouldn't be supporting him.
Civil rights lawyer Randall Callanan filed a federal lawsuit claiming the state's expert witness and HPD officers planted evidence. Callanan claims it was the difference in the third murder retrial.
The guy wanted a conviction, flat out. And apparently he was willing to do this. He was willing to take this very, very highly suspect evidence and put it into the court system.
In Callanan's hand is the complaint filed to the Texas Forensic Science Commission in 2019. This Dr. Robert Collins claimed the state's expert, Celestina Rossi, and other investigators planted evidence in a different capital murder case.
Wow.
Callanan says this complaint was not investigated, but believes it should have been given to Armstrong's defense attorneys.
And they're not going to say, oh yeah, that blood evidence, that's what we needed, and we should have handed over that report. But they didn't hand over the report, and that is that's really bad.
This week, our legal analyst Carmen Rowe said the allegations in this civil suit are troubling if true but difficult to prove.
Well, it's going to be nearly impossible for them to show that one individual or individuals planted this evidence in this case. But in this criminal trial, we've heard from HPD officers who say they never saw any blood on his shirt, and somehow it gets there.
Prosecutors say the jury was confident in its decision without this blood evidence. Troy Kless, KHOU 11 News.
All right. So you see, this is where we're headed to right now. They are trying to get a federal investigation because they're like, this has to happen from cross contamination. Also, the expert in itself, they didn't put information. You remember when we were watching the YSL trial and they were kind of grilling the expert, and I was explaining to you why they were grilling the expert to eliminate them. Now, I don't understand why the defense did not know this information about this expert being involved in another planting of evidence, but this is something that is being brought up now, as well as some other things. So this is, something that we want to highlight towards the end of this broadcast, because this is where we're at. This is where we're at with this current situation. So Armstrong files federal lawsuit against the city of Houston and jurors deliberate his faith in the third capital murder. So let's get to this article. I'm going to read it. So that last video we watched was called High Level Badness. Civil rights attorney is talking about what they were, the evidence that was allegedly planted. Okay. If this was your son, man, y'all, we just got to watch this. Okay, AJ Armstrong files federal lawsuit against the city of Houston as juror deliberate his faith in the third capital murder trial. Now, here you go. After a year-long battle and 2 mistrials, a man accused of killing his parents in 2016 has filed a federal lawsuit accusing the Houston Police Department of allegedly planting evidence in an effort to push forward a false conviction. This comes as a new set of jurors continue to deliberate whether the conviction of the 23-year-old Antonio AJ Armstrong Jr. for murdering his parents. Dawn and Antonio Armstrong Sr. court records say the couple was shot in the head with a .22 caliber pistol owned by Armstrong's father while they slept in the family's Bel Air home on July 29, 2016. The federal lawsuit filed Tuesday alleged that the HPD officers planted false evidence just days before Armstrong's third trial was set to begin. That evidence, DNA in the form of a speck of blood, could eventually become the focal point through the duration of the 2-week trial. The blood was planted by or in conspiracy with one or more persons of the HPD in order to try to convict Armstrong of capital murder and to taint the reputation in the mind of the public, the lawsuit read. Investigators say they found blood under an adhesive name tag placed on Armstrong when he was brought in for questioning on the night of the murder. Okay. Allegedly, the name tag, but not the shirt. However, during the press conference on Wednesday, civil rights attorney Randall claimed the HPD had a history of fabricating evidence and pointing to the infamous Harding Street raid in 2019. We're going to get into that. Which left a couple dead and several officers injured. In the months that followed, an international investigation found that 2 HPD officers coerced a fake story in order to obtain a search warrant. This planting of evidence ruins people's lives, Kennel say, even in cases where the evidence is suppressed or you found not guilty or the case is dismissed, you still suffer immensely. The money loss, that's what he's talking about, just to defend yourself. And a lot of the prosecutors and lawyers go on the guys that people will not have the means to defend themselves, to get proper litigation represented. Kendall added that they continue to pursue the lawsuit regardless of what the jury decide, regardless of Armstrong criminal cases. Throughout the Armstrong trial, defense attorney repeatedly dismissed the credibility of the newly found evidence. There is no blood at all on Armstrong's clothes, said the defense attorney Collins during the closing arguments on Tuesday. How in the world did 2 specks get under the sticker on the back of a tag if there's no blood anywhere else? Instead, defense attorney directed the attention towards Josh Armstrong. Armstrong's older brother. The defense claimed that Josh suffered from paranoia schizophrenia and argued that his condition could have, his condition, his condition could have led him to kill. We looked at multiple records throughout all different types of institutions. This is kind of like a rehab of what I read before related to Josh and his delusional state, believed that he was either God or the devil. Colin said, when we know that he had command voice in his head that told him to harm himself and others. However, prosecutor argued that Josh's condition began after the death of his parents, allegedly, and focus time analyst, the alarm system within the family's home. So that's one of the things we're going to try to focus in on if we can get some of the court records, I still got to pay Pacer. I owe him $80. I'm supposed to do that today. Prosecutors said that the system was equipped with motion detectors, motion sensors that log timestamps when motion was detected throughout the home. Using these timestamps, prosecutors argued that the killer came from within the home and that the murder weapon was placed on the kitchen table on the first floor about 30 minutes before the Armstrong called the police. My thing is, if the motion detectors, where they go, did a motion detector go off from the third floor to the second floor to the first floor? So that's some of the things I want to look for in the papers, The killer did not come from the first floor of the house. He came from the second or the third floor, or else the first floor motion sensors would have caught him, said the prosecutors. But it's supposed to catch him if he's coming from within the house, to me, allegedly. The alarm record of Armstrong's cell phone activities tells that he was awake the entire time. What was he doing in 31 minutes? So remember that this is their thing. So what is this? The full view of the court records. What is this? Ooh, this is what we're gonna read on next week. Look at that. Grace Levi always finding something. So maybe I don't have to pay Pacer for this one. So we're gonna go over this next week, next Saturday. Hopefully I don't work. Hopefully we'll have my next time off. But tonight we're gonna be going live again around 10 o'clock and do hot topics. We're gonna finish the hot topics that I didn't finish last week. Going through all that drama. Now, where we at? Timeline, a blotch Houston police raid and its consequences. So this is about the police raid that they did in Houston that's highlighting some of the corruption allegedly. And we're going to kind of finish off on that note because everything else I have to share with you. No, we got a 17-minute video to share with you. I'm going to just let that play out in the end. But let's get into the allegations of the huge Houston police botch raid that was based on faulty information. So allegedly they have a history of planting evidence. So let's just listen to this, This was February 28th, 2019.
This is News 88.7 In Depth. I'm Florian Martin. For the past 4 weeks, we've been following developments in what started with the news of a drug raid gone terribly wrong in Southeast Houston.
4 Houston police officers are hospitalized after they were shot while trying to serve a search warrant. A 5th officer suffered a separate knee injury.
The alleged drug dealers, a married couple who lived at the house, were killed in a shootout.
Wow.
But soon the story shifted from one about heroic officers fighting for their lives to one about police misconduct. Now, the FBI is investigating after it came out that an officer may have lied on an affidavit to get the search warrant, and the Houston Police Department has announced sweeping changes. To understand how we got here, let's go back to January 29th, a day after the raid. Right away, there were questions. Neighbors and the killed couple's family members painted a picture of them that didn't fit those of dangerous drug dealers. Here's what one neighbor told ABC 13.
Someone knocks down your door and you're not, of course, you're going to react.
Houston Police Officers Union President Joe Gamaldi, on the other hand, saw it as a violent attack on police, as he told reporters at a news conference.
We are sick and tired of having dirtbags trying to take our lives when all we're trying to do is protect this community and protect our families.
He also took the opportunity to attack those who criticized police. Police Chief Art Acevedo later called those comments over the top. At another press conference, the chief gave a step-by-step account of what happened during the raid.
The first officer through the door, armed with a shotgun, was charged immediately by a very large pit bull.
The officer shot the dog dead. That's when Dennis Tuttle, the homeowner, started shooting at that officer.
That officer was struck in the shoulder. He went down, fell on the sofa in the living room.
Then Tuttle's wife, Regina Nicholas, tried to grab the officer's shotgun and was consequently shot by other officers. Faced with questions, the chief released a search warrant on Twitter. It shows the narcotics officers alleged there was heroin in the house.
Wow.
However, all they ended up finding was small amounts of cocaine and marijuana, raising more questions. Then it was revealed that HPD Internal Affairs investigators couldn't find the confidential informant who was mentioned in the warrant affidavit. Two officers, Gerald Goins and Steve Bryant, have been relieved of duty, and Goins, who was the lead officer in the raid, is under criminal investigation. At a town hall meeting with the police chief and the Harris County District Attorney, activists and community members wanted answers.
I don't know if someone's going to knock down my door and shoot my dogs and kill me and my husband.
Following that, Chief Acevedo announced he would end no-knock search warrants in most cases. Going forward, anytime officers want to request a warrant from a judge that lets them enter a home without first announcing their presence, the chief has to sign off on it first. He also says SWAT teams and officers serving search warrants will start wearing body cameras.
Wow.
And while Acevedo initially denied
Wait,
calls for an
wait,
outside
wait.
investigation,
Let me just stop here. They don't wear body cameras out there? Wait a minute. I'm sharing this with you. It has nothing to do with the AJ Armstrong case, but allegedly this was brought up to highlight the corruption that has been going on in this area of Texas and how fake affidavits and fake evidence is being, corrupting cases. Now, we're going to do something tonight too as well. We're going to give you an update on the Memphis police station and how over 40 cases was actually overturned because of those officers that was involved in the Tyree Nichols case. This is how corruption literally will cause a ripple in the whole legal system. Okay, so let's just listen to this because this is why some of us have doubts. It's not just because of all of the circumstantial evidence in the case, but also the behavior of the office of the law. That's not the Pacific or the law out there.
Last week, he announced the FBI has opened a civil rights investigation into the case.
The FBI will do a collaborative investigation. It's independent. However, we'll actually have to work with them because we will provide them information and some of our evidence.
This means 3 agencies are investigating: HPD, the FBI, and the DA. A citizens review board will have access to the police investigation and be able to make recommendations. The DA's office also announced it'll review 1,400 cases, 27 of them active, that Goins worked on during his 34 years at HPD. Several cases have already been dismissed.
Wow.
Acevedo says he expects there to be serious consequences for the officers involved.
I'm very, very confident that we're going to have criminal charges on 1 or more police officers.
Both the police chief and the DA say they don't plan to comment further on the investigation until it's concluded. For News 88.7 In Depth, I'm Florian Martin. This is News 88.7.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is leave this link for you guys so y'all can listen to it, watch it, read it yourself, to see kind of the level of corruption that's going on in Texas, according to this situation. When y'all see the article, they have a timeline breakdown of all the corruption that you saw me. I was scanning through. So this has been going on for a while. They're watching it. Documents that's showing that led to the officers accused of lying was February 15th. So please watch this. This is a timeline. If this was something that I was talking about, I really would read this document live because it has a good breakdown of that situation and the corruption. But we might keep that in mind. We might just keep that on the side. Okay. So now let's get to our last bit of content that I'm going to share with you. It is brought to you by the bench, Antonio AJ Armstrong jury verdict. So this is a 17-minute video after the jury verdict. You're going to hear from the attorney, a few other individuals that had some type of connection to the trial. And that's where we're going to leave off today because we're going on 2 hours. And like I said, the part 2, just to give y'all a heads up, part 2 is going to commence of me editing full interview with AJ Armstrong grandfather. It's 23-minute, uncle, 23-minute video. Another one, full interview of the prosecutors of AJ Armstrong case. We're going to go into that. That's like an hour and a half video. as well as another hour-and-a-half video that I'm going to edit, AJ Armstrong trial prosecutor closing arguments of what they were saying. And then we're going to hear the defense closing arguments. And that was an hour-and-a-half video. So we're going to do that. Be looking forward to Grace Levi editing that so y'all can get the point and, you know, like the key elements. So you can make your decision, because I think this young man needs support. I'm going to be honest. So let me get my beautiful self off the screen. I want to say thank you guys for being here with Grace Levi for 2 hours. We're going to be coming back tonight as well, probably around 10 p.m. And we're going to be doing hot topics with Grace Levi. I got some more things to do to get myself ready for next week. You know, got to be a house mom and all that. But thank you so much for being with us. Before we actually show this clip, we are going to bring you a word from our sponsors, because we did not do this the whole time. Okay. Ooh, hold on. They like, you going to bring a word from who? Our sponsors.
Would you like to learn a brand new and innovative way to invest your extra money that has a low barrier to entry and low competition? What if I told you that it is a guaranteed method to get up to 18 to 20% return on your investment? Tax lien and deed purchasing is the only way to get into the real estate market through the back door. No credit and no loans needed. This method isn't commonly taught, and therefore the competition is very low, for now. Put together a 14-hour info-packed course which will teach you everything you'll need to know to get started. Learn at your own pace, step-by-step guided video and aids to start you on the TLC deed investment process. The course offers many learning tools for new investors, helping ensure you safely invest in tax liens and deeds. Contact us today and join the buyback team.
All right, let's get it. I'm going to remove myself off the screen and let's listen to this 17-minute video.
Good evening from the Courthouse Square in downtown Houston. Joel, Brian, Rilwan, we are the bench this evening, and it was a big day in the third trial for AJ Armstrong, found guilty, convicted of murder just a few hours ago. We want to talk about it. And that came in after how many hours of deliberation? They just got the case yesterday at Rilwan.
Jury deliberated roughly 10 hours in total between yesterday and today. Yesterday, it was in their hands around 1:40. They wrapped up the day at 7:06 yesterday, and they started promptly at 9:30 this morning, I'm told. And as we know, they continued through lunch, and then around
They asked to continue through lunch.
That's true, yeah.
That was the first indicator, I think, that they were going to come up with something today.
Then shortly after that, just before 2 o'clock, we hear a ringing in the courtroom. Initially, we all thought maybe it was a question. Then once I saw more deputies walking in, we were all kind of realization this is the verdict.
Let's talk about the reaction. Rilwan, you were in the courtroom that very moment. What did you see on AJ's face when that verdict was read?
So I'll say this first, preface it with this. AJ was behind us, right. So I didn't see him directly, but there were points where I glanced at him, I could see him. I didn't see any emotions from him at that point. What did happen as soon as the judge said guilty, his wife, Kate, who was sitting in there, immediately started bawling. She hunched over and her arm was crying, and her mom sitting next to her, consoling her. And then as soon as they left, that's when she audibly just started bawling.
The entire family left without comment, really. They didn't stop to talk to reporters. They are said to be completely devastated. Each and every one of them was on AJ's side throughout the entire trial. In fact, throughout the last 7 years, I would say. Brian Wise, KPRC2's legal analyst, is here. You were in the courtroom as well. What are your takeaways from the verdict?
I think I actually had a somewhat better vantage point when it came to looking at the defendant. And not surprisingly, no reaction at all. Having done this for 45 years, that's not at all strange, because your typical defendant, knowing that he's going to spend the better part of his adult life as a ward of the prison, is in a state of shock. And one of the many things that law school doesn't teach us, and believe me, it fails to teach us much more than we need to know, is how to deal with a defendant, how to deal with the family, how to let them know that the unthinkable is going to come to pass. I think, like we were talking about in the hallway, I'm sure last night, AJ and his wife went to dinner. and walked into the Harris County Criminal Justice Center through the front door and is leaving tonight through the back door with the bailiffs. There is no way that I can quantify what that is like for any defendant, particularly one who's 23, not to mention the incredible consequential toll that it's going to take on his family, guys.
And he is the father of a young child. He is a married man himself now. The crimes were committed back in 2016 when he was just 16 years old. And so 7 years have passed since then, and he will be spending the night in custody. Let's talk real quickly. We're going to talk about all the reaction in just a second. They're yelling in my ear, but here's what I want to hash out real quickly is the sentence. What happens now? How long does he have to spend as a minimum before he's eligible for parole? It's a capital murder conviction.
And this defendant ought to feel fortunate that the law changed insofar as the maximum possible punishment for juveniles, because back in the day, juveniles convicted of capital murder in some states were getting life without parole. There were juvie lifers in the parlance of TDCJ. When the law changed, this defendant will have to spend 40 calendar years, day for day, before he even takes a peek at the parole board.
Real one, that would make him about 63 years old.
63 years old. His son will likely be in his 40s or so at that age. So that's probably why, obviously, the family incredibly emotional. That's not what they wanted to hear. And so when it broke down in that way, a lot of them did leave the courtroom. Some of them stayed. I looked at the grandparents who were sitting in the back. Yes. They just kind of sat there, just kind of processing everything that happened and just trying to see what the next 40 years will look like for them.
Wow, it's hard to imagine, I'm sure, for that family. We want to talk about other reaction to this case, and the first is from the family itself. As I said, they did not stop to talk to reporters and photographers as they headed out of the courtroom. In fact, some of the members of the family used that sort of side judge's preference entrance. They were allowed to use that. But we do have a statement from the family. It's at least a statement from the great uncle. This is AJ's great uncle, who we've had on the bench before. This is Harvey Armstrong. It does have some profanities in it. When you hear me say the word blank, that's where the profanities were. We've replaced them with the word blank. And here it goes. This is the quote from great uncle Harvey Armstrong representing the family. Quote, "This blank is blanked up, and you can quote me on that. This is not right. I am not sitting down on this. We and I will fight this verdict. This kid is innocent. This hurts." And in fact, they have already filed an appeal. Has Rick Toto done that already?
Yep.
He has filed written notice of appeal, which has to be done within 30 days of the sentence being pronounced. It's a practical matter. I think our viewers need to understand something. The harsh reality of the appellate process, something that I've been doing for literally 45 years, is that your typical defendant has around a 5% chance of success of winning his first appeal. And it's not because of anything other than the fact that there's so few things that can go wrong, so few things that impact the integrity and the fundamental fairness of the trial, that ultimately an appellate court's going to say, you get a new trial.
All right, let's head into the courtroom, at least earlier today, where Rick Toto, or this is outside, this is just after the verdict, right? And this is sound from Rick Toto. He gave a sort of impromptu press conference right after the verdict was read. Let's listen in.
Rick, any words you'd like to say to us?
You ask me questions.
How do you feel? 7 years you've been on this since the trial one. This is obviously the decision you don't want to hear. How do you all feel right now?
It's absolutely devastating. AJ is grown up with us. As I said in my closing, over the last 7 years, we've seen him grown up from a 16-year-old to a young man, father, husband. It's devastating. But when the district attorney's office has the power to continue to retry cases, financially devastate the family, those are things that's hard to overcome on a third trial.
Will you represent him on an appeal?
I will not.
Why is that?
I don't do appeals.
Is he planning to appeal?
He's already filed notice of appeal.
Is that an automatic notice, or?
He's already filed notice of appeal.
What did AJ say to you?
Obviously, my conversations with my client are confidential. He's devastated, but he's one of the strongest young men I've ever known, and his family is amazing. And obviously, they're devastated right now, and this is a difficult time for them. But they will rally, and they will, help AJ and his young son and his wife get through this.
What words did you share with the family?
Ask Chris.
So, I'm sorry, repeat the question.
What words did you share with his family?
We tried to give him hope. We know it's a long road. Everybody's in shock and disbelief, and it's going to take some time to process everything that just occurred. And like I said, it's just going to take some time. And the family, you know, they're having to process things. It's taking forever, and they're going to get back on track, and they're going to do the right thing, and they're going to see this thing through and hopefully get some justice for AJ.
It's not over by any means. This family will net.
Talk about the emotion of these 3 trials in the last 7 years. As attorneys, as now friends with the family, this must be a lot to process. Can you shed some light on that for us?
It's difficult. When we try cases like this, we don't sleep, we don't eat. We're constantly worried about upcoming witnesses and evidence and strategy. And the months before, we're getting everything together. So it is the most difficult thing I've done in my career in terms of being a lawyer. So to have this result after 7 years is a tough pill to swallow, but we will not ever stop fighting for AJ. I've said this many times. We'll be here always for him and his family as strong as they could be, and they will not stop fighting for AJ. They will continue through an appeal and whatever comes after that.
Any idea whether it was a different outcome this time? Last time it seemed like things were tipping in favor of the defense.
So every trial is different. Every jury is different. It's impossible to predict from a last trial what's going to happen in the next trial. So it's just the risk involved in jury trials. Anything can happen. They're different people. And the other thing is the prosecution knew everything that we were going to do. And, you know, it's very difficult to do it twice. It's almost impossible to do it 3 times.
Do you regret turning off the lights in the courtroom?
Absolutely not. That whole deal was silly.
Do you think the new evidence had an impact in this case?
That evidence is ridiculous. AJ filed the federal lawsuit. They will pursue that aggressively. And we'll let that play out as well. We're done. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Rick Tototo there, the lead defense attorney with Chris Collins, his co-counsel after a losing effort. Rick Tototo not often on the losing side of the case. He's had a lot of big wins in his career here in Harris County.
And I've had the privilege of knowing him since he was a young prosecutor, and the privilege of trying the Ashley Benton case with him back in 2008 with a really good result. Rick's a good lawyer. I know that he's devastated, and he's going to do whatever he can.
He said it's not over yet, so he's filed that notice of appeal. Of course, we've got to talk about the other side, the winning side in this case, and we want to hear from Prosecutor John Jordan. He just got out of a press conference a few minutes ago.
Ryan and I just had the opportunity to talk to the 12 jurors and the 3 alternates, and all 15 were confident and very confident in their verdict. So Antonio Armstrong Jr. walked into this courthouse this morning as a defendant, and now he is a convicted capital murderer. This has taken a long time, and I think there has been a false narrative out in our community through an effort to shape a narrative that just wasn't true. This jury got all of the evidence, and they, I believe, are confident, as we have always been. You know, the question has been, because Kim had asked Ryan and I, should you try him again? And our answer was yes, because we believed he killed his parents, and he killed 2 people. So what better reason to try him again? And the fact that he was youthful makes him even that more dangerous.
All right, that is John Jordan, a lead prosecutor and successful today. AJ Armstrong sentenced to life in prison. He is eligible for parole after 40 years. He is in custody tonight. We're going to take a break here on KPRC2 and come back right after this message. Welcome back to KPRC 2 News at 6 and a very special edition of The Bench, our sort of court TV-ish show, and a special reason for it, and that is the conviction, capital murder conviction of 23-year-old AJ Armstrong, who at the time of these crimes was 16 years old. He is the young man who is accused of killing both his mother and father, his father a former NFL player, and really both of them were pillars of the community. And Sort of his arrest was news of the day back in 2016 and has continued to be so. Today, sentenced to life in prison. After 40 years, he has the opportunity to possibly be paroled. So he would be 63-something years old. We want to talk about the reaction from what happened today in court, of course, and also the differences we saw in this, the third trial, the first two ending in hung juries. What were the key differences? Why did it swing the other way this time?
Obviously, we had that, we had that key blood spatter. This didn't happen in the last trial because that happened last month. That's the reason for the delay here. But with all of that, John Jordan, during their press conference, he said the jurors said they didn't even talk about the blood. That was out of their mind.
Yeah, they didn't seem interested.
They said that by that point, they already had it in their head that AJ did this. They pointed out to the 911 call, the interview with Armstrong by detectives that night. That's what the jurors told prosecutors today. That was the reasons why they all said guilty in this case. Another thing that's different with the props. With the props that was used, the staircase, the makeshift bed, and the mannequins.
Much more theatrical, the presentation. You think that makes a difference, Brian? That resonates?
And I think it does, and I love the theatrical reference because my take about trials is that they're like plays. You can have one critic who thinks West Side Story is a hit and somebody else who thinks it's a bomb. I think John Jordan and Ryan Trask had a much greater comfort level with this jury than they did the second time around. I know because I've spoken to John, and John's position was they never really felt like the second jury was in a position to return a guilty verdict. And I know they had a jury selection consultant this time. I believe that's huge. And it underscores the fact that trials are won or lost long before the first witness ever hits the witness stand, Joel.
I want to get my notes real quick, and they're right here, and I know it's awkward that I'm doing this on TV, but I wrote down 4 things because I did attend the DA's press conference. We don't have time for it, we're saying, but I just want to key on one thing. Apparently, this jury, they made flip charts. They had it's so organized in there while they were deliberating. They had sort of X's and O's, and they were looking at every little piece and nook and cranny. Another aspect we have to talk about on this busy day is the federal civil rights lawsuit. There was a press conference earlier today. I think that was at HPD's property room, was it? And we're going to go now to Rochelle Turner, who has more on sort of the other separate legal battle that's going on here. Rochelle?
And Joel, this morning, some of AJ Armstrong's family stood outside of this building with civil rights attorney Randall Callahan, alleging that the Houston Police Department planted evidence in this case. Now, the Houston Police Department has a history of allegedly planting evidence in other high-profile cases. Back in 2019, Regina Nicholas and Dennis Tuttle were shot and killed by Houston police officers during a botched raid. Several weeks later, Houston police admitted that the raid was built on lies. Today, I spoke to the attorney representing the Nicholas family. He says they had problems with evidence back then.
One of them was years later, we found evidence that they didn't recover at the scene. The other part of it, obviously, is the potential that evidence was planted, which the DA's office and other law enforcement have confirmed was repeatedly done by Sergeant Goins, along with his, when he set out his squad for many years planting evidence.
And that former Houston police officer was acquitted, or rather he was charged with 2 counts of murder. Now, attorney Michael says that this could be a huge problem when detectives don't collect and process evidence at scenes, because it just makes it difficult for the community to trust them. As for AJ Armstrong, attorney Randall Callahan and his family says they will continue to fight for AJ. Reporting live from downtown, I'm Rochelle Turner, KPRC 2 News.
Number 154-6111, the state of Texas versus Antonio Armstrong Jr. We, the jury, find the defendant, Antonio Armstrong Jr., guilty of capital murder as charged in the indictment.
Answer. Because you are that, you are capable. You are gifted, and you are so unique. All of the things that you may hate about yourself are your strengths. It's okay to be soft. It's okay to be opinionated. It's okay to be different. And it's so okay to just be. The world awaits to receive you.
Would you like to learn a brand new and innovative way to invest your extra money that has a low barrier to entry and low competition? What if I told you that it is a guaranteed method to get up to 18 to 20% return on your investment? Tax lien and deed purchasing is the only way to get into the real estate market through the back door. No credit and no loans needed. This method isn't commonly taught, and therefore the competition is very low, for now. Put together a 14-hour info-packed course which will teach you everything you'll need to know to get started. Learn at your own pace, step-by-step guided video and aids to start you on the TLC deed investment process. The course offers many learning tools for new investors, helping ensure you safely invest in tax liens and deeds. Contact us today and join the buyback team.
Experience a global adventure with our mineral wash cut-off sleeve t-shirt, featuring a unique design inspired by cultures worldwide. Perfect for any occasion. Add it to your wardrobe today and join us on this epic world tour.